All right, welcome back to Lightroom. We're going to go in to this panel today. In the last couple of videos, we've talked about white balance, the exposure, the presence, using the histogram, and letting the histogram tell you what kind of exposure, highlight, shadow, black and white adjustments to make. And now we're going to go into the tone curve. And you probably heard me tell you that I'm not a huge fan of this slider right here for contrast. I think you can use it for limited adjustments, but in order to get a little more crazy with it, you can use the tone curve. So there's a couple of ways to use it. If you look here, you'll see that this is also a histogram, right? And it's saying that there's not a lot of information in the darks. So you could increase or decrease the value in the darks. If you would like to increase or open up the shadows or bring the shadow down a little bit, you can do that. Same for the highlights and the lights. Right. So this is kind of cool. You can play around with this by sliding these, and you'll see that they each correspond to a part of the histogram. I know that when I look at this, I might not necessarily know where to put a dot and where to drag it. Like I may not know, oh, okay, I need to go into the darks. So by doing this, by playing with these sliders, you can play with the way that the histogram is cut up into the highlights, the whites, the blacks, and the shadows, okay? The other thing that you can do is just go on, and I hit this linear, you can do the presets, medium contrast, strong contrast, okay? Or get this little guy here, and this will change it to the point curve. And if you've used Photoshop before, this may be more familiar to you because it's an adjustment layer that you can add, and you're more than welcome to try and add some dots. All right, and you add those points and you can drag. When you have an S curve, you'll notice this S curve here gives you more contrast. When you have an inverted S curve, you have less contrast. And say you're like this, because everybody does this like one at a time, and then that might not be exactly what you want. Just hit reset. Like no problem, okay? But this right here is the business. Because if you're like, lady, I don't know where to touch that. I don't know where to put a dot on there. If you select this little part of the tool, you can go and actually drag up and down in certain parts of the image. You want the whites to have a little bit of a pop. It will place a dot on the tone curve for you. You want a little more dark over there. It will create the dots on the tonal curve, and you just go into the image. It's kind of a more hands-on way to do it. And you can see where I like this better than just that contrast slider that just goes up and down. So you can make little baby adjustments with that, but this is where you're gonna have a lot of fun. And if you're new to it, I suggest grabbing this guy and directly up and down. You'll see. You can also go a little crazy, and if you go crazy, you can always just go back to linear, and it's, and then you can go back in and start it again. Okay, so that's how to use the tone curve. You also, again, have your contrast that you can play with a little here, and probably both of these working together subtly will help you fine-tune the contrast, the difference between the light values and the dark values in an image.